Hello everyone, this is History, and today I am here to talk about the American history of the war. As we get through the topic, we'll cover some of the most significant wars in American history, including Civil War, World War I and II, Korean and Vietnam War, Cold War, and Russia-Ukrainian War. The Civil War was a significant conflict in American history that took place between 1861 and 1865. Long before the American Civil War, there was an American Revolution, which was war to see if there would be an American nation. And because of that, America was able to be independent from the Great Britain. Back to Civil War, it was fought primarily over the issue of slavery and state rights, with the Union Army fighting against the Confederate Army, which resulted in the emancipation of slaves and the preservation of the Union. To elaborate, we can compare the death of toll of the Civil War to other major wars in American history. The Civil War remains the deadliest conflict in American history, with an estimated death toll of 620,000 soldiers on both sides. This is more than double the major of American military fatalities in other wars combined, including World War II, which had a death toll of around 405,000. When we look at the economic status, the economies of North and South have diverged by the 1830s. The North has begun to industrialize, with factories, railroads, and manufacturing driving economic growth. On the other hand, South was heavily reliant on large-scale agriculture, particularly cotton production, which required a large workforce of enslaved people. The reliance on slavery as a labor source limited the development of other industries in South. And we can say there were 5 consequences of the Civil War, which is mainly talk about it. The first consequence was the Anti-Slavery Act. The Civil War resulted in the end of slavery in the United States with the passage of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution in 1865. The amendment abolished slavery and involuntary servitude except as punishment for crime. The second consequence was the establishment of the Freedmen's Bureau. It was a federal agency established in 1865 to help newly freed slaves and poor whites in the South in the aftermath of Civil War. It provided assistance with food, housing, and medical care, and also helped to establish schools for the newly freed slaves. Third was military reconstruction. It was a period of time following the Civil War where the federal government took control of South and enforced new laws and regulations to protect the rights of freed slaves. This included the establishment of military governments in former Confederate states and the passage of Reconstruction Acts of 1867. Fourth was the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, ratified in 1868. This amendment granted citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, including former slaves, and it also prohibited states from denying any person due process of law or equal protections under the law. Fifth and final consequences of Civil War was the 15th Amendment to the Constitution, ratified in 1870. This amendment was an amendment who prohibited states from denying citizens the right to vote based on their race, color, or previous condition of servitude. This amendment was significant because it expanded voting rights to African American men, although it was many years before women and other minorities were granted to vote. Overall, the Civil War had a profound impact on American history and resulted in significant changes, including the end of slavery, the establishment of federal programs to assist freed slaves, and the ratification of amendments to the Constitution to protect the rights of all the citizens. Now, there's one question left. Did the war end after the Civil War? The answer is no. The reason that there are some important wars that happened after. First is the World War, and let's start with World War I. This was a global conflict that took place between 1914 and 1980, with the Allies fighting against the Central Powers. The war was sparked by assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and ultimately led to formation of the League of Nations. World War II, on the other hand, was a much larger conflict that took place from 1939 to 1945. It was fought between the Axis powers, led by Germany, and the Allies, which included the United States. The war resulted in the defeat of Axis powers and marked the beginning of the Cold War. Speaking of the Cold War, this was a period of geopolitical tensions between the United States and Soviet Union that lasted from 1947 to 1991, when the Russian Confederate has established. The conflict was primarily fought through proxy wars such as Korean and Vietnam War. The Korean War, which took place from exactly 1,129 days, from 1950 to 1953, was a conflict between North and South Korea, with the United States supporting the South. The Vietnam War, which took place from 1955 to 1975, which is exactly 20 years, was a conflict between North and South Vietnam, the United States supporting the South. Finally, let's talk about the most recent conflict on our list, the Russia-Ukrainian War. Unfortunately, this is an ongoing conflict that began in 2014 when Russia annexed the Crimea Peninsula from Ukraine. The conflict has since escalated into the full-blown war, with both sides suffering significant casualties. The war has a devastating impact on both Ukraine and Russia, with thousands of people being killed and millions displaced, which also had a broader implications for regions and the international community, with the United States and other Western countries imposing economic sanctions on Russia to respond to sanctions. While the conflict is ongoing, there have been some attempts at peace talks with mixed results. However, given the deep-stated historical and cultural tensions underlying the conflict, it is unlikely that a lasting resolutions will be reached anytime soon. To end, the history of the war in America is a long and complicated timeline, with many significant conflicts shaping the nation's history. From the American Revolution to the Russia-Ukrainian War, each conflict has played a vital role in shaping the United States and place in the world. Thank you for watching today, and I hope you learned something new. See you in the next episode.